The new smoking for children is screen time. My children have been smoking for many years now. It was a very difficult way for us to have a family together. Most of our time spent together for at least a year was 4 people sitting in front of a kitchen table. Everyone's on their screen. I confess to you, that was not correct. I confess to you, we made a terrible mistake. Something happened to me 2 months ago. I came home and I decided to remove all of the screens from my home, including my own. I needed my screen for work and I used it with specificity. We took away all of the iPads from the children and we proceeded to have a family life that was synonymous with something like the 70s and 80s. We don't have television in the home. We don't have iPads in the home. When I work, I tell people why I'm working, how long I'm going to be working for. I don't let my cell phone interrupt me from my personal life, which results in many, many missed calls and many frustrated colleagues. But I need to set a priority in my life so that I can raise children in a family that are productive. This episode is going to cover 3 major parts. 1, my journey in detoxing my own children. I have a 6-year-old boy and a 10-year-old daughter. The science behind impairments that are derived from excess screen time. The 3rd part is intervention strategies that you can use based off of what I've learned firsthand and what I've researched. And I think you're going to find the method that's most compelling over time, after you try to limit screen time like we did, try to negotiate with a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, is that you have to go cold turkey for a period of time and then reintroduce the iPhone, the iPad, or these technologies with specificity. So let's go back from the top. 2 months ago, I came home. I hid all of the iPads without consulting my wife because my wife was giving in to the screen time for many years now. And 15 days, 20 days later, she ended up thanking me. A heart-to-heart thanks. The first week of detoxing our son, our daughter, was beyond difficult. My son was highly addicted to the iPad. They were watching anything from Minecraft to, Roblox to these quick videos that children are addicted to, these quick reels, and they couldn't stop watching it. And if you pulled the iPad away from them, they would become very violent. We are very lucky to have both wonderful children. But early on, my daughter adopted a really great habit of reading a book. But you could see that when we gave her iPad, she would prefer the iPad over the book. So as a result of taking the iPad away from my daughter, she reverted back to the book and found some solace and some peace in that juncture when we removed the iPad. We also were very lucky with my daughter because she had just engaged in a new sport, a water sport, and that really provided her a fall back into something she loved and she could transition into. So truth be told, we had a very easy time with my daughter, who was 10, in removing iPad from her. My son, on the other hand, exhibited all of the characteristics of a drug addict quitting drugs. And as you may or may not know, I've pursued a master's in psychology and exercise prescription. So I have studied this topic with some level of specificity. Part of our curriculum was to attend, AA meetings, also observe people trying to quit alcohol, quit drugs. And what I noticed was there were what my son was going through mirrored what a heroin addict would do if you didn't give them drugs. And the science will also show you that the brain relates to the reduction or the elimination of screen time or heroin and responds similarly. It wants more. And this is where things start flying around the room. Tantrums are really being executed by my son at a particularly unbelievable volume. And every minute, he would ask for the iPad. Every 5 minutes, then every 10 minutes, then every 30 minutes. As time elapsed, every 40 minutes, every hour, and then throwing fits when he couldn't get it. It was a really, really difficult time. But we had to stick to our guns. And what we utilized as our key intervention was to keep moving outside of the house, to detach ourselves from the house and move the child into public places like parks, hikes, and let him re-engage a three-dimensional world opposed to a two-dimensional world. That took about a week of transitioning. And for that first week, he would really ask for the iPad, like incessantly. Like there's no way he wasn't thinking about it. Week 2, the frequency as when he was asking for these with the screen decreased, and we noticed something rather miraculous. We have had these toys in buckets sitting in the living room in his room for probably months, if not a year. He started to pick up a toy that he used to love when he was a toddler, and started to engage it. And he was playing with it. And then he started playing with it more and more. And the neighbors, we have these children who are neighbors. A lot of the times the neighbors would knock on the door and he wouldn't want to play because he was on the screen. And we as parents are to blame for this. This is not our child's issue. We just didn't set the necessary guardrails because we're subject to we were not great parents in not preventing our children from being on the iPad. It's never too late. I feel like I'm too late. I don't feel like I'm too late. I feel fortunate to have found the energy and courage to do it at this time, and I feel obligated and compelled to really share this with all of you. I know a lot of you are friends and family on the channel. Please share this with as many people as you can, because this is a true story, right? This isn't like some CNN or, some news cycle. This is real. I went through this. My wife and I both went through this. So the second week, kids would knock on the door, ask for play. My son would say, "Yeah, let's go play." And that play became more play. And that play became more play with the toys. And every 3-4 hours, he would still ask for the iPad, but with less intensity, with less addiction. It was like, can I have some? In a more playful manner. Like, I know I'm not going to get it, but can I get some? And that's a true testimony. And my daughter, to mirror what he's doing, started to play with him more and more. And I wanted to cry because you now start to see the siblings playing with each other. We used to have them play on Roblox together because we thought that was kind of good. But this time they were really playing. They were playing outside. They were kicking the ball. They were they were doing things that normal children do, normal siblings do, at least from my point of view. I was born in the 70s, and it brought a lot of joy to us. And that joy transfers into our lifestyle as well, making us more aware of what we shouldn't be doing with our lives in front of the screen. And I proceeded to set non-interrupts on my phone and made sure that I had specific times where I used my work and addressed that time to address work. And I used my screens. I did my very best to not use it in front of them. And when I used it in front of them, I had articulated to them why with a level of specificity. So I was showing them and my family respect in regards to boundaries of when I'm allowed to use the phone. And a few times my daughter would catch me and say, "Daddy, you're not paying attention. You're not paying." And I apologized. And I love that accountability, especially from my children. We are now at week 2. At the end of week 2, the playtime from my children with both themselves and with toys that are 3-dimensional increased, I would say, from 20 let's say on a weekly basis, let's say they played with toys 30 minutes a day, physical toys, that would have gone up to 3 hours to 4 hours. And we didn't stop them from engaging in toys. He did all kinds of stuff. He was planting plants in a fun way. He was picking on leaves. He was engaging nature. He was asking more questions. "Daddy, why is this happening? Why is that?" It's almost like we unlocked a piece of his brain. We unlocked his desire to learn again. And I'm only providing you observational data right now. I'm not going to use the science, but as you will see in part 2, the science will prove a lot of this to be logical. So my son on week 2 probably asked for the iPad at the frequency of once every 2 hours. And what they would do was they knew that I was the person that was holding the fort down. And so momentarily they would ask my wife, "Hey mom, can I use the iPad?" Or they would negotiate with you and say, I played, I really played. Look, I played with my neighbors, I played. And they're still pleading with you. Like, I did what you wanted me to do, now let me have the iPad. This is still week 2, guys. We're not out of the woods yet. And we would again have to tell them no, no, no. And they would throw a fit. The fit went from 10 minutes to 9 minutes to 5 minutes. And to that end of the second week, every fit was maybe 3 minutes, and they would move on. And what would be distracting them is no longer the screen, but the physical objects in the room. So we put out more toys, we put out more things to engage in, even board games. Just create that renewed reason for curiosity. We don't have a television in our living room. We moved last year, towards the end of last year, to a new place. And so we decided on the move, we were quite aware of this, that we didn't want a television. And so people would come to our house and say, "You don't have a television?" Yeah, we didn't, but we still were on the screen a lot. So what helped us was during this detox period was we literally didn't have a television in the house. So when you took the iPads away, it was either dad or mom working on the iPhone or computer. I don't use a tab. I don't use iPad. I don't have a habit for that. I need the keyboard. And so there was some level of peace in the house. Week 2. And so the children would be playing with each other. My wife would be doing things like, "Let's make some food together," or "Let's create things together." My wife is wonderful at being outdoorsy, taking them to places. And that week, I wouldn't say we were the most productive parents on the work front. Probably not very much, because even I probably missed more calls than I've missed in weeks. But the reality is my children were getting healthier. And as a 50-year-old, I felt like my relationship with them was getting healthier. We were having real conversations at dinner. Not the, how did your day go? What was going? It was like you could have more of a conversation that was dialogue. And, when your kid's 10 years old, for those of you who have 10-year-olds, they're fully able to talk. And 6-year-olds, their curiosity is what drives their conversation. Why? Lots of whys, and especially boys. So that aspect of our life really improved, I would say, 100%, right? My relationship with my wife was more productive. We were able to kind of zero in on, oh my God, we were kind of in this maze for a little bit. Ouch. I'm glad we got out of it. And that's when she, was pretty appreciative of what I had done. And I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy for me to do it. It was really hard, It's still hard today. We're now traveling. I'm speaking to you on the road. No, guys, check this out. We traveled for 5 hours, 6 hours on a flight, drove across the western United States, no iPad. Hello, no iPad. And we not just survived, we thrived. And in this trip, we would really visit many of our friends and family that we haven't seen in a while. And we demonstrated to them that you can flourish without an iPhone or an iPad, even while traveling. And many of them will listen to this podcast, and hopefully, I'm not sure if summer's easier to do it, but we did it while they were in school. So I know for some parents with the older ones, they have, they're using the computer at school. I think that's okay. That's okay. But if your kindergarten kids using tablets, I don't think that's okay. I think in the second section of this podcast, you'll discover that if you have children under 3, remove the iPad from them now. And if the parents, if the teachers have an issue, show them all the signs they'll present. So week 3, it went away. The child wasn't asking for the iPad every hour, every 5 hours, every 6 hours. So more like once a day. And I'm not going to lie, it hurts you when they ask because you want your kid to be rid of the last addiction, that it's like, oh, did you quit? It's like, do you quit smoking? Your health is going to get better. And then just at the end, they're like, can I have another cigarette? You're just like, you want to break down. But don't worry. That's just part of the process. It's part of the process. Their playtime went up. Their engagement with 3-dimensional. They went to the park a lot. And they wouldn't want to leave the park because they knew there wasn't something better after the park, like an iPhone screen. And their activity level went up. I know that my son could, I'm not going to lie to all of you, sit there in the corner of a bed, watch iPad for 4 or 5 hours straight. And every time we tried to remove the iPad from them, they would throw a fit and go, we didn't have the strength to tell them no. And we all do, like, guys, ladies and gentlemen, we all had that time where we took it away for a day or 30 minutes or 3 hours and we're like, this is it, no more. And then we went back to normative standards. So if that's happened to you, don't feel bad about it. It will happen to us multiple times. I mean, over the course of the last 3 years, I don't know how many times we tried this, but this time we succeeded. And that's why I'm making a podcast about it. So, third week, the frequency of which the child was asking for the iPad dropped from multiple times a day to once a day to once every few days. And at the end of the third week, we really felt like they were out of the woods. Here's something that happened on the fourth week that I want you to know. And on the third week, on the fourth week, on a random day, I felt like, my God, the children's activity was like, they need a break from activity. They're moving so much, they're outdoor playing so much. Like, I wanted them to kind of find a way to just, it's hard to get a kid to meditate or calm themselves down. So I wanted to try the experiment. I said, and I took the iPads out and said, here, each of you can use it for 20 minutes. And they were so shocked because they hadn't asked for it for days. And I gave it to them for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I took it away, and there was no tantrum. There was no tantrum, and they didn't ask for it again. And intermittently, over the course of the last month, I would do it for every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes, but I only allowed them to watch what we predefined. So they were not given free rein. They couldn't just go anywhere. For instance, my daughter loves Project Runway, so we would let her watch only Project Runway. And for my boy, we would only let her watch science shows. And so they couldn't go and, go to YouTube and just search for whatever they want. That really helped us establish the reason for the iPad and how to use the iPad in our lifestyle as a study aid, as a short-term intervention, and I'm not going to lie, as a short-term babysitter or pacifier, right? So I can tell you now that after, I think we're 7 weeks in, children are thriving. The detox is real. The 6-year-old is well on his way to a happier life. His brain woke up. He's just asking me more questions and more questions. I'm curious about this. Daddy, why does this work? And my daughter is just, she's always been active. She's reading more books. We go to the library, and we went to the library a lot. We went to bookstores and library a lot and let them touch the book and let them use the library as a resource for them to ask us questions. And we were there to answer some questions. My wife is really good at that. She's like, she has patience, she has fortitude, and without her, this couldn't be possible. So the entire family had to really get involved for this to take place. I'm going to shift into the science now. And there's several research papers that I went through and randomized control trials. I picked 6. In this initial study that was done called Smartphone Screen Time Reduction Improves Mental Health, a randomized controlled trial. And this was done within college students between 18 and 25. And what they realized that when they limited the phone use, and those of us who have older children who may be in college or going to college or are senior in high school, who only use their phone 2 hours a day, which is 60% less than what the normative standard is. I think most teenagers now are using it before 4.5 to 6 hours a day, resulted in better mood, less stress, and most important of all, better sleep. So if your children, old or young, specifically on the older side in this cohort, use their phone less than 2 hours or within that 2-hour limit, they're just going to live a better life. Period. That's what the science say. On the second study, taking a break, a 2-week social media detox. The full title is The Effects of Partaking in a 2-Week Social Media Detox. And this was again, published on adults that were younger, 18 to 30. And the reason I'm highlighting this area a little bit more is because there seems to be an influx in suicide amongst women, specifically those who spend a lot of time on social media. So this is good data for all of us to know that when they used and limited social media, this is just social media alone, to 30 minutes a day, they slept better, they felt happier and they felt less addicted. So remember, both key studies, which touched on over 150 people, young adults, came to the same conclusion: better sleep, better mood, less suicidal thoughts. And so you can understand that this is reality, right? These devices, they have a deleterious effect on us if we don't use it properly. The third study, which is a study that I really got passionate about, is called Addictive Screen Use Trajectories and Suicidal Behaviors, Suicidal Ideation, and Mental Health in U.S. Youth. And what this is going to surprise you is they started following these children from 9 to 10 to 14 and 15. And what they realized in this study, which was over the course of 6 years, tracking 4,285 kids, tracking their screen usage and feelings. And they found that addictive use linked to sadness and scary thoughts. So the more you use these tools when you're young, the more it leads to sadness, the more it leads to scary thoughts, the more it leads to, of course, when you're scared, it's harder for you to sleep. You have nightmares. So be mindful of that. This is over 4,000 plus kids. As parents, I don't know if we need to be told this to know that this is in fact true, but it's building some level of awareness for us. So we're aware of it. So I keep doing these podcasts, not because, I do a full series on stairs, climbing and walking. I know you've heard me, but I keep repeating because it takes 10 to 11 repetitions for the human brain sometimes to register. So repetition is part of our learning process. So this study is significant. The fourth study, many of those who have younger kids, this is pertaining to you. So stop and play, reducing excessive screen time among preschoolers. And this is a really, I think, important study. And the reason is they monitored preschoolers from ages 3 to 6. And what happened was, instead of just telling the children to reduce their use of screen time, they educated the parents on the deleterious effects of screen time on WhatsApp. And this was primarily, I believe, done in Malaysia. And the parent confidence going up resulted in the screen time dropping for the children. And of course, that led to happier children, better sleep, better productivity, better memory, better learning skills, so forth and so on. Anything you know is positive, it's happening here. Reduce screen time, better children. That's really all you have to remember. Better learning skills. Your prefrontal cortex, for those of you who may not know, the prefrontal cortex, the top two front part of the brain, for women are not fully developed until 26. For men, we're not fully developed until 30. And that's often why you see that women are a bit more mature than men. It's because their executive functioning is far more developed 4 years ahead of time, right? So some of you might be celebrating, I told you so. And yeah, we as men, I think we know we're less mature. It takes us a little bit more time. The fifth science research that I also found was extremely useful was mobile devices and child emotional reactivity. The use of mobile devices for calming and its association with children's emotional reactivity and parenting stress. And here you quickly realize that they did a study and measured screen time used for soothing. What they found that when you use screen time for soothing your child, behavior problems increased. Behavioral problems like tantrums, throwing things, even hitting, emotional control decreased. very similar to if your child goes to an ice cream store, waits outside, wants ice cream, you don't give them the ice cream, they throw a tantrum. And that's the result of using screen time to actually curtail. So let's say they go to the ice cream store and you're like, okay, I'm not going to give you ice cream, but I'm going to give you an iPad. You may think that's better for them, but it's not. You're actually disturbing their ability to regulate their emotional behavior. And on a longitudinal basis, it's going to end up giving them less ability to control their emotions. Specifically, because the brain cannot, in a two-dimensional space like the iPad, the brain cannot make the connections it can make with audio and smell, right? And perception and touch in one area, which you can do in a park, in a three-dimensional setting, in a learning environment like a school. You can't do that in Zoom. So that's something that I think is really that everything we need to be mindful. And sorry, I think this study was done, but this final study, which is a study worth all of us following, is early screen exposure and brain development in toddlers. This is still ongoing, and it's the association between screen-based media use and brain white matter. And I talked about brain white matter, and think about brain white matter as the superhighway for your brain, the internet your high-speed internet connectivity. The more you use screens, the less white matter integrity that appears in your child's brain. And that they really use MRI scans, like the MRI scanning machine, to find these results. So these are rather accurate, and it's deleterious to language skills. So what's really the big idea here after the summary of these scientific studies is, number one, I'm from memory, I think our screen time usage from 2019 to present day had increased about 30%. I think the average adult is using it for 5 hours, maybe even 6, and the average child is using it 4 to 5. Half your day is given to these screens. So taking a break from these screens or social media, just a little bit, is just going to make you happier. It's going to make you sleep better. You're just going to enjoy life more. But be mindful, you're not going to feel those effects well into the second, third week of the detox, right? Just like I exemplified with how what happened to our family. I was being very transparent to all of you. And using screens to calm emotions too often can actually make things harder for them later on, especially before the age of 3. And what we're starting to see is that the screen time impacts brain growth. We don't know to what extent yet. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, on a longitudinal basis, as they scan the brain over the development period of 10 to 15 years, ideally you want to scan it from 0 to 26, 0 to 30, and see the brain fully develop with impact of screen time. But that's actually, that's like testing on human trials without proper guardrails, right? You know it's bad for the child. Why would you put the child through hours of testing in front of the screen? So we're going to have to take our best intuition and the circumstantial science to make a decision as parents as to how much screen time we want to give to our children and also to ourselves. All right. That concludes the second section of the kind of scientific review, just a high-level overview of where the science is today so you have a clear understanding. Now, my personal, this third section we're covering is the intervention itself. And I think most of you know I have a background in exercise prescription, and psychology, both in masters. And I'm going to be quite firm on this intervention and speaking from personal experience and some of the literature reviews, remove the iPad for a period of a month. Commit to it. Don't introduce it. Don't set screen time in the beginning. Just remove it cold turkey once and for all. And then reintroduce it back into their lives in 20 to 30 minute segments with specificity. Use this for math, use this for entertainment, and be very vocal about why they're getting it back. And then you start to click on the timers. Never, ever, in my opinion, use the iPad and set things like block this, block that, don't do this, and just hand over the kids the iPad so that they can now use the iPad freely within the algorithm you set for them. I think that is not the best way forward. You set the channel, make sure you vet the channel, know what they're watching, then let them watch it. They cannot be exploring on the internet at this level. Even YouTube children, I mean, there are things on there that shouldn't be there. We've seen things that are just disturbing, like people getting killed on Minecraft. It doesn't make any sense. So reintroduce it a month later, and subjective to their ability to detox from the screen. It took my child a month. It may take yours 2. It may take yours 3 weeks, but I don't think anything shorter of a month is valid. And I'm not saying that my child may not relapse later on, but I'm giving you first quarter review here. So hopefully you can find that helpful. You can't just replace the iPhone or the iPad with a book for many of us. With my daughter, we're very lucky, but sedentary behavior for a child is smoking too, right? So screen time, being sedentary, even reading a book for 3-4 hours is not exactly healthy. So you must have a clear plan to have activities set up for them. And this is where my secret weapon is. And that is, find a community member that you trust, that are friends and family that are going through this same experience with you. And we're lucky to have neighbors that were going through the same experience with us. They were ahead of us, but their kids were already detoxed from the iPad. So it's important for your kids in this period to hang out with children that are not, using the iPad. They're not doing FaceTime. Yes, they're going to miss a lot of, for my 10-year-old, they're going to miss a lot of engagement with friends, but make sure the families know what you're doing. Ask them to participate with you. The most important, the most effective way to prevent addiction is actually through AA meetings, 12-step meetings, because it's community driven. So get close families and friends who share your frustration to get involved and bring them into your world and work together in detoxing your kids, and let FaceTime be real FaceTime now. Plan play dates during this month and get them to really engage their friends in a manner that's physical and not deleterious to their health. The other thing, I think, if you're in school and this is an action you're taking, educate your teachers and let the teachers know this is what you're doing, what you're going through. So they're mindful and they're aware of what benefits children can have from detoxing from the screen. Involve your community. And I would, if you would like, I would ask your daughter and your child to either verbally journal or write out, the benefits of what they're experiencing, having more time away from the screen. On week 5, week 6, this is going to help them also monitor and they may be scribbling, it's like Happy Father's Day, Happy Mother's Day kind of writing, but it helps them formalize their thoughts and contextualize their emotions as children as to what they're experiencing. Because they may not know. They're like, I feel pretty good. I feel good. I'm not addicted to this. I feel liberated. My son told me he felt good. I said, what do you feel about not having? I feel free. I'm not making this up. And so let them journal that. That journaling is very powerful. And much like what I do on my podcast, which I just started last month, this is part of my journaling. It's not really content. Like, we're not making money off of this, but it's journaling. It's being generative. It's sharing with other parents, and trying to be productive, and being also self-aware of the positive things we're doing for ourselves while trying to fix a lot of the negative things that I have. Like, I'm still managing screen time, and I'm learning these new tricks on how to silence my phone, no block. I was always distracted. So now I'm trying to learn to focus, kind of, and I've been doing this for many years now, but I'm doing it at another level now, where I'm really being mindful at 50 on how to control my time, how to control, my space, how to interact with my children, with tech, without tech, with my family, and being mindful of that. I'm still a junior varsity at this, so bear with me. And I mean, all the books I've gone through units and master degree in this. I'm still practicing, right? This is a practice. This is not something you just switch on, switch off. It's because we live in a world with so much technology, we have to have the emotional ability to kind of turn things off and practice turning that off daily and try to succeed at that. So this is the conclusion of this episode. And there are many there's content out there that teaches you how to use, set parameters around your iPhone, block certain things, or your iPad for your children. I'm not going to produce that kind of video. That's not my background. My background is more on a behavior point of view, psychology, exercise prescription. My final prescription to us is replace screen time with active time outside in the sun, in environments, in the bookstore, in a library, at the gym, in the mountains, in the ocean. Take them outside, let them touch things, create curiosity around them. And when you use the screen with them, make sure what you put on the screen is the only thing they watch. So remember the old days, ABC, NBC, CBS. I don't know which order it is. We didn't have cable back then. 3 channels, you pick. Do you want to watch Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, or That's Incredible? I think that's the way we grew up. And that you can still instill that level of confidence today, right? Hey, what channel do you want to watch, this, or that? And then lock that into that channel so they can't switch. So one way I would think about immediately do it, if you're on YouTube Premium, you download the channel, turn off Wi-Fi, give it to them, and it plays static. Done. And after the show's done, you're done. So you don't have 50 shows on your iPad, 50 shows on your iPhone. And maybe that helps. And use physical clocks when you're monitoring them. Don't use digital clocks. Switch to analog clocks. Here's a clock in front of you. Don't look at the clock on the iPad. I know they're going to do that, but create a physical object for them to create association with. And that should help. This is a longer episode. I urge you to jump around. This is from my heart. Please share this with as many parents as possible. I know it's not about subscribing. It's just please share this. And let's help more children get healthier so we can see more kids at the playground playing together the way we did, right? So thanks all for your time. Thank you. I'm going to pay homage to the 6 studies. First one, smartphone screen time reduction improves mental health. And the authors of this study are Thomas P.A., Christoph Hoferer, Christoph Gross, Andreas Hofer, Wolfgang Froelich, Elizabeth Probst Hense. The second study is Taking a Break, a 2-week social media detox, Coyne and Woodruff, and the authors are Sarah Coyne and Caroline Woodruff. Third study is addictive screen use and mental health in U.S. youths. The study was done by Yungyi Xiao, Emma Smith, Jacob Johnson, Lisa Brown, Michael Lee, Rachel Williams. Fourth study was called Stop and Play, Reducing Excessive Screen Time Amongst Preschoolers. The authors are Diana Raj, Norliza Ahmad, Noor Afia Mod Zulfelhi, and Po-Ying Lim. Fifth study, Mobile Devices and Child Emotional Reactivity. The authors of this study are Jenny Radesky, Caroline Kiston, Barry Zuckerman, Katie Nitzberg, Jamie Gross, Margot Kaplan Sanoff, Marilyn Augustin, Michael Silverstein. The final study was Early Screen Exposure and Brain Development in Toddlers. And the authors of this study is John S. Hutton, Tricia A. Kasani, Jonathan Dudley, Catherine M. Huey, Tom DeWeet, and Scott K. Holland. Thank you.